I've got a dual Speedland test run on today. First, I'll be running in Speedland's original road shoe, the RX FPY. Then I'll be headed up that away once I've swapped into one of their newest models in the GS platform, the GS BLK. I'm about ready to get back into some quicker running, speed up the legs a little bit. Good time to come back to these RX FPYs here. Before my injury, I had been doing some of my interval runs in this shoe here. This one in conjunction with the Hoka Mach X2. Those are my kind of two go-to speed shoes. It's not exactly a pure speed shoe, but certainly has the chops for it in terms of energy underfoot, reactive foam, lightweight, and you could also swap in a carbon fiber plate if you want to dial it up a notch. As I am warming up here, doing a bit of a gradual ramp up here, I am noticing and recalling the fact that 7:49 pace on that last mile. I am recalling the fact that there's a certain kind of up-tempo or distance-oriented efficiency to this shoe that makes it beyond just the fast shoe. There's a very nice geometry to this shoe. Big toe sweep up front, but very smooth. Also a nice wide platform under the middle of the shoe in the rear, which keeps it so stable. And geometry I'm talking about really leads into that smooth toe rocker effortlessly. I get the sensation that I have this nice, wide, stable landing under the rear 2/3 of the shoe, but not a flat landing. Never the feeling that I'm bogged down at all. I'm gonna come back to the ride in a moment, but let's run through the specs real quick here. Also, before I get going with a few little 1-minute pickups. I've got a US 9.5 here, EU 43.0. I find that true to size for a road shoe as far as US sizing, but perhaps maybe a third or a half Euro size short. I don't typically have too many 43s in rotation, certainly not in trail shoes. My pair weighs in at 9.3 ounces, 264 grams. So I was talking about being a pure speed shoe versus kind of a distance or versatile up-tempo shoe. That weight falls right in line, especially when I come to the stack here. Kind of middle of the range there. Not close to 10 ounces, but also not, say, 8 or even 7 ounces that you'd want in a super fast shoe. Stack is specified at 40, 33, 7 mil drop. I have them measured pretty much on target. 41 at the heel, so 41, 34. Midsole is a uncompressed supercritical EVA here. That's this outer midsole here. You have their proprietary drop-in midsole here, which is, they're calling this an elastomer. I'm not quite sure what type of foam this is, but it is a very soft, almost like plasticky insert here. And this makes up a good portion of the midsole. So if you kind of look inside there, you can see the uncompressed supercritical right below here. Also, you can see there is no Strobel board in there. So between this elastomer insert here, you have that uncompressed supercritical foam directly beneath, unless you swap in their carbon fiber plate. Now, Speedland has that Carbitex carbon fiber plate in their trail models. It kind of has that two-way flex, so it's rigid in one direction and stiffer in the other. The road plate is rigid in both directions. It's more like your traditional carbon fiber plate. So it's stiff both ways, don't have that kind of flex you would want to have underfoot if you were running on trails. As you can see, I do not have it in there. I'm 5'10", between 140, 145 pounds these days after my little break from running. But in previous Speedland models, all of them, I found the plate too much for me. I talked about the stack. I've got these measured at 41 at the heel. Now that includes everything. This scratch carbon rubber outsole here, this outer carrier midsole and this inner drop-in. So I got 41 from here to the bottom of the shoe. That's quite a lot of stack, especially for a road shoe. I found, and I've even found in their trail models, even the ones with a bit lower stack like the PDX, I found that the plate makes them a little firm, a little bit too stiff. I feel like I get enough inherent stiffness in these shoes as is without adding the carbon fiber plate. So if you look at this one, it has some decent amount of flex to it, but it's essentially a big slab of rubber here. Now, being that it's uncompressed, I assume that means they're not injecting it into a mold and squeezing it down. They probably have sheets of this and they're like trimming out the midsole out of those sheets, which I assume leads it to be more airier, a little bit lighter weight, have a bit more rebound to it. Again, saving weight there. Also, flexibility though, coming back to that, really nice tension in this shoe, nice and even. It feels like almost like this smooth boomerang effect here. As I'm running, I really detect the sweet spot to this shoe to be like right around here. If you land here, I feel some compression under the ball of my foot. And then of course you have the big toe sweep up front here, but along with the compression in the forefoot into that toe sweep, when you land right here, I almost feel like I get a little slingshot or like boomerang effect, and that makes the shoe feel really efficient on the run. I haven't done any of my planned 1 minute quote unquote intervals for now. They're going to be somewhat easy compared to what I typically do as I'm coming back here, but at the last mile coming here with 7:45, I think I have a little bit of a tailwind, a little quicker mile before that. Again, I'm just warming up, but I feel like I just can land, especially on these smooth road surfaces, land right there and just kind of like gets good compression, good bit of flex there, and then releases. And I'm talking about all of this action without having the carbon fiber plate in the mix. Probably wondering what I've got going on down here. I talked about this a little bit in one of my previous in for test videos. The BOA system here, specifically in this Speedland shoe, I'm not getting along very well with. You have 1 point of tensioning here. If you watch my videos, you'll know, especially with trail shoes, I talk a lot about leaving different sections a little bit looser, mainly the forefoot, sometimes the middle of the shoe, but wanting to lock down this upper ankle area here, and sometimes even more so the middle of the shoe. And with traditional laces, that's something that you can accommodate with different techniques, and usually just depending on the upper of the shoe, you could pretty much handle that. With this Speedland setup, you have 1 dial here. Typically, when I got these, this kind of BOA wire is connected all through here. So you have 1 dial, tensions down the whole shoe, but for me, that was quite a bit problematic as I would dial down this one, and it would just like, I want to have this kind of nice and tight. I don't have a high volume foot here, but I want to have that upper ankle really locked in, really seat the heel, really like that aspect in any type of shoe. So what I did was I actually cut this wire here so I would remove or relieve the tension in the bottom of the shoe, and this actually works quite well for me. I actually debated and I tried running this without these laces at all. I thought about even cutting these straps off because down here the tension is just fine for me. I don't really want to have it squeezed too much, but at times when I run, I felt I wanted to have it a little bit controlled, so I did add this kind of short lace here, and I really just tie this down loosely, not even really tight at all, just to kind of give you the level of tension that I want down here. But the straps do kind of keep the foot contained as you're running with the movement of the foot inside the shoe. Another aspect to mention, as I was talking about adjusting the lacing to get the heel locked in and critically to relieve tension in the front of the shoe, I have these felt pads and I stuck them on the interior of the shoe here. You can see them in the lower section. It's those white pads. So you have this green felt along the interior, felty material, but there's just a lot of volume in this heel cup. Speedland's overall, just a high volume upper. You could imagine if your foot is a higher volume, especially like the upper portion of your foot, maybe this 1 single dial or even their double dial setups, they can work good because you're getting an even tension around a higher volume foot. Me having, say, a medium volume foot, it's problematic because I don't want to squeeze down my entire foot in order to get the right tension to lock my heel into what I also find is a pretty voluminous heel area there. I can't get that without, you know, removing these laces here. This was a bit of an experiment. The first time I've done it with the Speedland shoe, the reason being I really like this shoe. I like the feel of the foam. It's great. Love the geometry, love the ride, but I couldn't make it work with the lacing. My foot was going numb when I would get the heel locked in enough. If I would loosen that, my heel would be slipping out, and you know, I wouldn't be going numb, but my heel would be slipping out. So this kind of rigged up setup works well. I fill in some volume in there and my heel is great. And then this single dial just locks everything in there, and this kind of keeps it even up front. A lot of talking here. I just realized I'm 4 miles in as well. And if I want to do a trail portion, gotta head up there. So I might have to put that off until tomorrow. Just got these BOA shades in for test. These are called Striver. Second day I'm using them only, so I haven't really dug into them too much. Got this big, aggressive kind of mountain bike style frame. They typically don't work for me, but the fit on this one is really good. I thought I might pass these off to my wife after testing them, but they're really sitting well on my face, and the colors are excellent. They have like a rose tint on the interior. You can see the area I'm running in nice and dry, starting to get burnt out early in the summer here. Colors can tend to be pretty washed out, especially with clear skies like this. You know, sometimes you wear sunglasses and they make everything look super colorful and nice. So it's keeping things pretty bright, very contrasty, nice and sharp. Really loving the color and clarity so far. More to come with these. All right, so I'm about to pop off some 1 minute intervals here. Keep it easy, keep it safe, see how the legs feel, and report back on how the shoes feel. Let's start right here. Here we go. All right, one down. That was 5:52 pace there. Again, I'm not going flat out. I'm trying to feel out the legs after the injury, but shoes felt great here, as I suspected, as I remembered, actually. Don't have that aggressive, like crazy propulsive effect because I don't have the plate in here, but it's definitely a bounce to the shoe. You saw how I was squishing that drop-in midsole and then the uncompressed EVA on the outside. Really feels like springy, like you're bouncing along, especially with that geometry that I talked about. Trying to land very centered, keeping the impact even underneath me. Trying to stay safe again here, coming back. And this shoe is perfect fit for that. Almost catapulting into that rocker, which feels very nice, very smooth. All right, time for another one here. Okay, 5:34 on that one there. Feeling pretty quick. I am running into headwind too. I did suspect on the way out. Felt a little quick with those 7-something miles. Had a tailwind out. Now I'm running faster into it. That rocker, that geometry, plus the midsole actually, the whole setup I'm finding works really well across different paces. Kind of recovering now. Slow jog, a little slower than when I was warming up there, but they still feel nice and smooth, very stable. In fact, a lot of those high stack speed shoes, kind of your dedicated tempo or interval shoe, they'll feel narrow, feel a little bit aggressive maybe, running at slower paces, but that's not the case here with this one. And also the CCD, I have to mention that model, I think, same exact shoe here, but in a different color. But yeah, running even slower here, recovery type pace, easy, slow pace here, and also 5:30 pace in my last rep there. They felt equally comfortable. I don't feel like one or the other, either the slow or the fast pace doesn't feel right. They both feel just fine. 5:37 on that third rep there. I wanted to kind of smooth it out a bit, fall somewhere in between the pace of my first two, but actually ran a little closer to the faster second one. I am probably gonna split this one up into two parts. Feel after running these pickups here, I won't want to wind my way up there. The top is actually beyond that right there, but I don't want to go too much up and down right after this. So I'll do that tomorrow. Probably do a separate video with the GSBLK. Just knocked out a couple more reps there. For those of you who've been following my recovery here, the leg feels fine. For those of you that haven't, I had a light stress reaction in my left femur. Did not run for 1 full month. This is my about 3.5 weeks back now. So on the ramp up here, and the leg has felt fine so far. This is the fastest I've run since the injury. So it's been like probably 7.5, 8 weeks since running this fast. I did do 5 20-second strides last week just as a feeler, but this is the most structured fast running I've done. I think I'm gonna cap it at 8 here, maybe do 3 more. Seems like a good number. Just a little loop-de-loop here. I have run the shoe on dirt. Check out my road to dirt video, but not an outsole for that. I want to emphasize that I believe it is that wide platform here that really is the distinguishing factor for this shoe. I love it, and to tell you the truth, before today, before my injury, I had been doing my faster running in the shoe on the treadmill, and that is why I love that wider base. On the treadmill, you always have a little bounce to it, unless you have a crazy expensive Woodway or something. I've got a pretty decent Nordic Track commercial one, but a little bit of wobble there. I find that the wide platform really makes it nice and stable, eliminates any of that wobble when you're running in a higher stacked, softer, super foam shoe, plated maybe in fact, on say a bouncy treadmill. So this is great for that. And now that I've got it on the roads, it's feeling just as good here. A lot of times, wider platforms in any shoe, road or trail, especially when you're trying to run faster, they could feel a little sloggy, like you can almost feel that wider platform kind of sticking or grabbing on the ground. Extra contact, extra friction, I don't know what, just always feels like a little bit much. Like sometimes you would want to have something a little bit thinner underfoot to kind of help that ground reaction time get off the ground quicker. But stability is always good. Better to be more stable than less unstable, right? At least as long as it's not restrictive in any way, but that's certainly not the case with this shoe. Just rolls here, that geometry, that toe rocker up front, compression under the ball of the foot. Feels great for me. Again, I'm a little bit of a lighter weight runner. Doesn't feel like it's anywhere close to bottoming out here. Probably that drop in midsole, and the exterior foam itself, uncompressed EVA, has molded a little bit to the ball of my foot. Feels like super custom, in fact, underneath my foot. There's some arch contour here. For those of you that are interested in that, get a little bit of that. I'd say it's neutral to slightly high, not aggressive. Again, has a smooth texture to it. Nothing overly jutting into the bottom of the foot. Perhaps that contour is actually an element that leads you into that rocker, supports you falling into that ball of the foot, heavily rocker toe off up front. So it's working well for me. I don't find it problematic at all. Final thoughts on the FPY here, Speedland on the road. This is my favorite Speedland shoe, for sure. The geometry, the midsole, the ride of the shoe. I like this better than all of their trail shoes. It's just more energetic. You can see I had to adjust the fit a bit. I'm not completely sold on the BOA system, but that is something that Speedland seems to be married to, so maybe a consideration if you have a narrower foot, maybe an issue if you have a narrower foot. If you have a higher volume foot, certainly probably feels great. But for those of us medium to narrower volume in the foot, could be problematic. But I've made those adjustments here and it is working pretty well. It is my favorite shoe. Talked about liking the PDX due to that strap on the upper ankle. That seems to resolve a lot of the BOA Fit peculiarities for me. Could keep the lower BOA looser and really ratchet down that strap, and that's pretty ideal. So I would like to test out that LDVL model with that similar setup. But as far as the feel underfoot, the ride, the energy, love this model here. Just really wish I could have it with maybe regular laces. We'll see, maybe I will do some further modifications, but it's working well enough now and maybe I won't mess with it anymore. This could in fact be maybe a Goldilocks speed shoe for bigger runners. I talked about liking that wider platform, and I think that's an aspect that could work well for bigger, heavier runners out there. A lot of those taller ones, they're softer and higher and also narrower when you're talking about, say, a super trainer or even a dedicated speed or tempo shoe. That can be a little unstable if you're bigger. I think this wider base here is going to work well. It really works well for me as something of a lighter weight runner. So that is something to keep in consideration. I love the volume inside. If you don't like a speed shoe, especially on the road, where toe boxes tend to be narrower, more tapered, more aggressive, if you want a wider type, high volume fit, which is an aspect I like about the shoe, the width under, I feel like I'm landing nice and flat. My foot is not squeezed up front with my modified lacing here. So I like the width, I like the volume. I just wish the tensioning system would be better, i.e. maybe non-BOA here, but the aspect of the shoe itself, the shape and volume, is something that is great. So keep an eye out for Speedland Day 2 in the GS BLK model. Be heading up to some steeper and rockier terrain for that one. Check out the website www.humblerunning.com. Please like and subscribe here on YouTube and leave me a comment. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in Speedland on the trails next time.